Hi, I'm Randy Orr with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, helping buyers and sellers in South Orange County. What if I told you that one of South Orange County's most established cities is quietly going through changes that could make it more connected, more valuable, and far more complete than most buyers realize? If you think Laguna Niguel is just a beautiful suburban city with great neighborhoods and not much changing, stay with me because some of the biggest developments in years are taking shape right now. If you're not familiar with Laguna Niguel, let me start with some quick context. Laguna Niguel is a largely built out master plan city in South Orange County with roughly 64,000 residents, a strong retail base, high ownership occupancy, and more than 1/3 of its land set aside for parks and open space. For years, one of the city's major goals has been to protect that quality of life while also creating a stronger, more sense of place and a more complete city experience. And that is exactly why these newest developments matter. So if you are a home buyer anywhere in the country looking at Laguna Niguel right now, here are the updates I want you to know about. The first and probably the biggest is this. Laguna Niguel is finally moving towards a kind of downtown style center it has never really had. The City Center project is moving forward on a 25-acre site right next to City Hall on land that includes the former South County Justice Center, which closed in 2008, leaving the land vacant all this time. The city says the construction drawing phase is underway and that a groundbreaking is scheduled for summer 2026. The approved plans include specialty retail, restaurants, office and wellness related commercial space, community event space, a larger county library, walkable paseos and plazas, and 275 apartment style homes. In simple terms, this is not just another shopping center. It's an effort to create an actual heart of the city, a place where residents can gather, dine, walk, attend events, and spend time in a more urban connected setting than Laguna Niguel traditionally has offered. And that matters for buyers because when a city adds a real center of gravity, it can change how people experience the entire community. It can strengthen identity, it can improve confidence, it can make the city feel more complete. And for Laguna Niguel in particular, it has been a long-standing ambition. The city planning materials have explicitly described the development and true city center as a top priority because residents want the dining, the entertainment, the shopping, the nightlife, and the general gathering options without having to leave town for everything. The second update is less flashy but equally as important, and that's the city's newly adopted general plan. Laguna Niguel adopted its updated general plan in November 2025. And it is the long-range blueprint that guides how the city will evolve over time. The plan is organized around land use, mobility, resource management, public services, facilities, public safety, noise, and economic development. In other words, this is the document that helps determine where growth can happen, what types of uses make sense in different parts of the city, and how people get around, how infrastructure is maintained, how open space is protected, and how the local economy can become stronger over the next couple of decades. Now let me translate all of that into English because that is where it becomes useful for a buyer. The land use side of the plan affects what kinds of places Laguna Niguel wants to add or encourage, whether that means preserving established neighborhoods, improving commercial areas, or focusing on changes into targeted opportunity zones. The mobility side affects how the city thinks about roads, circulation, pedestrian access, bicycle connections, and the relationship between neighborhoods, shopping areas, and activity centers. The public facility side covers things like community centers, library service, water and waste coordination, and the energy systems, and the city's ability to keep core services functioning well as needed and as they evolve. And the open space and resource side matters because Laguna Niguel's natural areas, trails, and preserved land are a huge part of what makes this an attractive place to live. What is especially important is that the Laguna Niguel General Plan does not treat economic growth as something separate from lifestyle. Its economic development chapter explicitly says that land use, mobility, and resource decisions shape the city competitive advantage, quality of life, image, and the brand. The plan is also to identify key opportunity areas including the marketplace, the Chet Hollyfield Federal Building known as the Ziggurat, and the town center area. And it says that the city wants to reduce the leakage of resident spending to neighboring communities in categories like dining, entertainment, while attracting businesses and employers that better match the education and skill level of local residents. So this is not just a planning document for planners. This is the city saying, we want better places, stronger services, smarter connectivity, more local economic activity, and a future that feels intentional rather than accidental. And by the way, if you're watching this as someone thinking about moving to our area, this is where the story gets more interesting because the next updates are kinds of things that many out-of-area buyers would never know to look for, yet they can have a real impact on convenience, lifestyle, and long-term value. So keep watching. The third update is one that many people outside the area would completely miss, and that is the Gateway area. The Gateway is a major business and arrival corridor in Laguna Niguel, and the existing Gateway specific plan covers about 315 acres with a mix of office, retail, service commercial, light industrial, and auto-related uses. The plan governs not only land use, but also circulation, infrastructure, streetscape, and design. So when people hear Gateway Update, they should not think about a minor technical rewrite. They should think about one of the city's most visible commercial corridors and how it may reposition over time. This is where the timing needs to be updated for today, though. An earlier city timeline showed the Gateway specific plan update running from 2023 to 2026. And a 2024 Planning Commission discussion said that the city expected to be completed by the end of 2026. Not realistic. But more recently, the Planning Commission minutes in November of 2025 clarified that the Gateway specific plan update would be in staff's 2026 work program. So as of March 2026, today, the best way to understand this is that the Gateway update is still an active, live planning effort moving forward, not something already completed. And there's an important lifestyle angle to that. The city's strategic plan ties Gateway implementation to projects that I truthfully have never heard of, such as the Oso Creek Trail softening, the Oso Creek Trail extension, the Galavan Basin activation. That means the city is not only thinking about what gets built in that corridor, but also how the area functions, how it looks, how it connects, and how it feels. For a buyer, especially someone moving from outside the region, this is a kind of under-the-radar story that can eventually matter a lot. A city's major commercial corridor shapes first impressions, daily conveniences, and the future of economic potential. The fourth update is La Paz Road, and this is one that is important because it shows how the city is dealing with a real infrastructure problem, not just talking about vision. City records show La Paz Road has been actively monitored since 1997 because of the movement in the roadbed and the slope below. The city observed a more significant movement in April of 2021, which caused substantial damage to the roadbed and sidewalk on the southbound side between Rancho Niguel Road and Kings Road, a major traffic area. In May 2023, after a geological report found increasing vertical displacement and a new tension cracks in the soil, adjacent to the sidewalk, the city declared a local emergency and closed both southbound lanes in that segment as a safety precaution. The city has then moved through a phased response. First came the emergency detour. Then came the long-term phase plan 2, which reworked the roadway so that the two northbound lanes could carry one lane in each direction, restore two-way traffic more safely, preserve the northbound lane, the bike lane, added a southbound bike lane, and eliminated the detour. The city says construction for that interim configuration was completed in August 2024, ahead of schedule. But the bigger story is the permanent solution. The city says it has secured more than $15.5 million in grant funding in early 2024 through the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program. According to the city, the long-term project is aimed at permanent road repairs, long-term landslide mitigation, an improved corridor, wide pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, better vehicle circulation, and a roadway alignment that moves away from the landslide area. Expected outcomes include either a Class 1 multi-use trail or Class 4 bike lanes. So from a buyer's perspective, this is not just about a problem road. It's about whether the city has the will and the resources to tackle hard infrastructure issues in a serious and resilient way. And in this case, it appears the answer is yes. Stay with me to the end because the next two updates may be the most consequential of all. One involves a once-in-a-generation redevelopment opportunity, and the other affects the kind of flexibility buyers increasingly want from their own property. The fifth update is the Ziggurat, which is one of the most unusual and potentially consequential sites in all of South Orange County. First, for anyone unfamiliar with the acronym GSA, it stands for the United States General Service Administration, which is a federal agency that manages a huge amount of government real estate. On February 27, 2026, GSA announced the public sale of the former Chet Holyfield Federal Building in Laguna Niguel, known as the Ziggurat, partnering with Coldwell Bankers Real Estate to market the property. GSA describes it as a roughly 90-acre site with a 1,000,000-square-foot building and says it will represent a rare opportunity transformative redevelopment. Historically, this building has a fascinating story. It was constructed between 1968 and 1971 and designed by William L. Poureyrou. And I'm going to put that spelling on the screen because it's a tough one. He was the architect also associated with the Transamerica Pyramid. Its stepped pyramid form is why people call it the Ziggurat. It was originally built for Rockwell International, tied to the defense and space industries, but Rockwell never occupied it because the contract it was relying on did not materialize. In 1974, GSA took control of the property, and in 1978 the building was rededicated in honor of Congressman Chet Holyfield. Over the years, the site served federal functions and public oversight. Materials show federal occupants tied to the building included offices connected to Homeland Security and the IRS, related functions along with other federal uses. GSA began planning to move the property out of federal ownership in 2020. Why should a home buyer care? Because this is not some small, insignificant infill parcel. This is a giant, iconic, highly visible property with enormous development implications for jobs, tax base, image, and long-term city identity. Whether it ultimately becomes a business campus, mixed-use environment, or something institutional, or something else entirely, it's one of those once-in-a-generation land stories that can influence how outsiders view Laguna Niguel and how the city evolves over time. And there's one more update that matters in a very practical, homeowner-focused way. In January and February 2026, the city introduced and then adopted ordinance number 2026-239, updating its rules on ADUs and JADUs to comply with state law. For people who do not live in California, an ADU is basically a self-contained second home on the same lot as the main house. Think detached casita, guest house, garage, apartment, or converted portion of the home. A JADU, or junior accessory dwelling unit, is a smaller version created within the walls of the main residence. Laguna Niguel's own materials describe ADUs and JADUs as independent living facilities on the same parcel as the primary home. And the city staff materials note that the JADU can be up to 500 square feet. That matters because buyers today think differently than they did years ago. People want flexibility for aging parents, adult children, live-in help, guests, or possibly rental income. So even if someone never builds one, there is value in knowing the city's code is adopting to modern living patterns and making it easier to understand what is and is not possible on your own residential property. So when you put all this together, here is the real headline. Laguna Niguel is not standing still. It is trying to become more complete. It is working towards a true city center. It has adopted new long-range blueprints for land use, mobility, public facilities, safety, open spaces, and economic development. It is actively rethinking an important commercial corridor in the Gateway area. It is investing serious attention and outside funding to a different infrastructure and landslide issues on Paz Road. It has a major wildcard redevelopment story in the Ziggurat site, and it is modernizing local housing flexibility through updating ADU and JADU rules. For a buyer anywhere in the country, that combination is a compelling argument because it suggests a city with established neighborhoods and quality of life that may still have meaningful upside ahead. I'm Randy Orr with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, changing lives one home at a time.